It's Robert Gant, as you know. Great to get another Cameo request from you. Thank you for telling me that you go by Ash instead of Ashley. So let's see, questions. You asked about my coming out experience. Just so you know, on Monday, I actually did a whole podcast about this. There's a new podcast coming out called The Secret Life, and everybody shares about some secret, and I talked about my coming out journey. And so you'll get a much more complete version there, but I will just say that it's a journey. Look, I'm sure you know this as well. I mean, for all of us, I don't think there is like the moment I came out. It's really stages. There's stuff in first grade when I kind of recognized. There's just things along the way when I went out to my first gay bar, when I kissed my first guy, which you asked me about. When I actually told someone, when I came out publicly on the cover of The Advocate. I think the most key point of it is that it just was an ongoing journey. But I'm excited for you to hear the podcast and tell me what you think, because I really talk about the whole trajectory of my parents first met, my mom overhearing on the phone, and just a whole series of things, like all of us. My first boyfriend, just the stages of coming out, and I think it culminates with, I think for all of us, the continued internal journey we do around self-acceptance that is kind of the final ongoing part of the coming out process for every one of us. As for that first kiss, which you asked me about, prom night, I was a junior and went to the senior prom with a gal who asked me, and long story short, we were with a couple. We were at a hotel afterward, all drinking too much, and after the prom, and it ended up being with one of the couples that I was with. He was a linebacker on the football team, and we managed to identify each other. Again, I talk about a lot more on that on the podcast, but I was sort of the brazen one. I was the one who was making the moves. I think he was in more fear. I was in fear as well, but the need to connect was so strong that it wasn't going to be denied. But we ended up going into the stairwell of this hotel, and and had my first kiss. And I think you asked how was it. It was. One, it was amazing. Finally getting to connect with another man was. It was like a dream, a vision, something that at some point in my life I didn't even think could happen, especially when I thought I was the only gay person on the planet for so much of my early life. And it was terrifying because we were afraid of, every time we'd hear a door open, we would get nervous and stop, and and it was a forbidden thing. So and like I said, I certainly had fear. He had a lot of fear, and it was, but my need to connect, my drive to connect was, caused it to happen anyway. Thank God. You asked me about my first celebrity crush. I remember, I was trying to think, and then I was like, oh wow. There was an actor, I just was like gaga over him, and he was on this show in the 80s, I think, to really date myself, called Cover Up. His name was John Eric Hexum. You can look him up. And he famously and sadly was joking around on set at some point and had a gun with blanks in it. And he jokingly pointed it at his head and shot it, thinking it's blanks, but there was projectile that came from it, and he accidentally killed himself. And it was the most excruciating, painful. I was so sad because I had such, fantasies and, never to be realized. But, like for many of us, we have these crushes, which are, I think, really important and valuable, as especially when we're in hiding. That we have these things that we can have that can be hope, or represent hope for us. So yeah, he was my my dream dude. But what else? Let's see. You asked if I had any theater experience. Definitely. Obviously high school and college, I did a lot of musicals. I sang in all kinds of singing groups, a cappella groups, choirs, pop groups, all that kind of thing. And in college, I was the dentist in Little Shop of Horrors, and I just was in. I think I did Grease twice because I did it in high school and then law school, and actually out here in LA, at one point I was flown out to New York to meet with a producer named Susan Stroman, who was a big producer or director on Broadway at the time, and they were casting for the national tour of The Music Man, which was then on Broadway. And long story short, I was cast as the lead as Harold Hill, and it was the most incredible, exciting thing that had happened to me, and it was my dream role, and we were going to go through Tampa, my hometown, and they announced 2 weeks later that they were making it a non-union tour, and so it was this whole process of trying to unionize the production, and it was a crazy thing that just started happening around that time, and it was really heartbreaking, and one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life was to let go of that part, and as life has it, sort of God closes one door, opens a window, whatever, opens another. A month later, I got Queer as Folk. So if I'd been out on the road doing this tour, I would never have gotten to play Ben and experience the life change that I did. Okay, this is a really long cameo, so I'm going to make this a quick ending. Would I do a sitcom? Absolutely. I love sitcoms. I get started in these sitcoms. That's really more, that's my root. Those are my roots. That's my foundation. Lots of shows, my first ones, there was a show called Hang with Mr. Cooper, Step by Step, Friends, of course, Caroline in the City. I did 9 episodes of that. I was on Becker. I did lots of sitcoms over the years, and what I'll say is I would definitely do it again. And I think especially because at the time, what's happened is then I went off and really focused on a lot of dramatic work and on camera, and it changed my relationship to comedy on camera. Not that there really should be a distinction, but adding in the camera is its own animal in the process, obviously, for many reasons. But yeah, so now I think when I then went back, the first sitcom I did after Queer as Folk, I think, was Hot in Cleveland, and I remember that feeling of like, oh, okay, like I sort of know where this lives now, where I can be mindful of the comedy and that sort of thing, but also really be in the truth of it and everything else. So anyway, it's a long way of saying absolutely I would love to do a sitcom. So thank you again for having me do another shout out to Cameo, and these are great questions, and I hope things are okay with everyone in Australia, and just sending lots of love and good wishes for things to be in a good place. All right, until next time. Check out that podcast. All right, bye.